Hello, everybody. This is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today, we're going to talk about where you can see 3 relics or pieces from Christ's Passion and whether or not it's worth seeing these things. Now, before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Namo Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, secutor in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. So, in the Catholic and Orthodox world, and in the Coptic world, we are into, I think, much more than in the Protestant, certainly evangelical megachurch world, into seeing the relics of Christ, or not the relics per se, but seeing accoutrement or things that are associated with Christ's life, in particular his passion. And of course, I recommend to everybody that they go to the Holy Land. Of course, I'd recommend that you get a Catholic guide or an Orthodox guide, because you're going to get an actual, you can go to the Sermon on the Mount. You can go to where Christ exorcised the demons out into the pigs and the pigs jumped over. Of course, you can go to the births. There's a church of the birth and nativity, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I mean, we know because of oral history that has been passed down since the early Christians, where all these sites that took place in the Gospels are located. But in particular with Christ's Passion, maybe you're interested in seeing some of the actual vestiges or remnants of these things. So we're going to go through 3 of them that are relatively well known. So what about pieces of the true cross or the true nail or the thorns? The best place to see this is going to be in Rome. Rome, there is an old church called Santa Croce de Jerusalem, or Holy Cross of Jerusalem. And there in display, obviously none of these places you can touch the actual thing, but in display you can see these pieces. Now when it comes to the pieces of the Holy Cross, this goes back to Saint Helena. So Saint Helena was the mother of Constantine. We have a video here about how Constantine did not create the Catholic Church, but she was a Christian. When he was an emperor, she was already a Christian. And so near the end of her life, she decided to take a pilgrimage to Jerusalem because she felt convicted to go there to find these things. And because the early Christians passed down their oral tradition, she was able to find the pieces of the true cross. The story was that they were digging different places. Of course, she had all these Roman soldiers because she's the mother of the emperor, so they're going to listen to her. And they were digging different places, and in a cistern she found 3 crosses, but she didn't know which was the true cross, and so she had all 3 of them touched by somebody who was sick, and then that person was cured by Christ's cross, not the cross of the 2 criminals. And so from there, pieces of the true cross were brought back to the West. Now, of course, back in the Middle Ages, I mean, it was notorious business to say that you have relics of a bunch of stuff, including the true cross. So there's going to be a lot of fraud out there. So I would say if you really want to have the most authentic chance of seeing pieces of the true cross, the true thorns and the true nails, go to Santa Croce de Jerusalem when you are in Rome. Veronica's veil. So most Protestants, of course, don't know about Veronica's veil. This is one of the Stations of the Cross. So Veronica was a woman who wiped Christ's face with her veil. And then this is not necessarily sacred oral tradition. You don't have to believe in this. But when she opened it, she saw the face of Christ that was imprinted in this. And of course, it's a miracle. Now, where would you find Veronica's veil? Veronica's veil was, not surprisingly, in St. Peter's Basilica. And they sometimes will bring it out. Again, you can't touch it. It's going to be in a case. Sometimes they will bring it out, but the Vatican has Veronica's veil. And of course, as I mentioned, just like when you go visit the pieces of the cross and the thorn, you don't need to believe. It's not part of our fide, or our proclamation of our faith, that you have to believe that what's in that church is the true cross. Okay, it's optional, for lack of a better word. And then the last one is the garments, the funeral garments that Christ was wrapped in. If you read the narrative in the Gospels, remember when Peter and John went in it, they found the garment wrapped and folded neatly. And this is one of the arguments as to why we know that Christ was not, his body wasn't taken away, because when criminals take the bodies away, first of all, they're not going to wrap everything quickly because they're in a hurry. Secondly, those garments are actually exceedingly expensive. And so when people would steal bodies during this time in the Holy Land, and they would take the garments, So the garments were folded neatly. And of course, these are the funeral garments that we would see. And you don't have to believe this as a Catholic, but the shroud that is located in Turin in northwestern Italy is by many studies that have been done on it, many believe that is actual shroud that wrapped Christ's body when he was in the tomb. Now that shroud has a fascinating story, and we don't really have time to go through all the miracles that's gone through fires and all these things. And as a Catholic, you don't need to believe that if you do go to Turin and go see the Shroud of Turin, similar to the Our Lady of Guadalupe image on the tomb of St. Juan Diego, if you ever go to Mexico City, you don't have to believe that. Okay, these are optional; they're not part of our faith that you have to believe it. But it's up to you. You can definitely do your due diligence on all the aforementioned, and if you're interested in seeing these things, you know where to go. I would tell you do your research, because sometimes these aforementioned things, it's not necessarily the Santa Croce Church, because most of the time those relics are there, but Veronica's Veil and the Shroud of Turin, sometimes they're not available for image, for public display. So I would definitely do some research before you go to Turin or to Rome for these things. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless.